Okay, so we're diving into A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
And, looking through this, it looks like there's going to be a lot to cover.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of interesting, maybe challenging stuff about, ego, presence, and even this idea of the pain body, which I have to admit sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah, it's a pretty dense book.
It is. It is.
But I think if we take it step by step, I think there's some really thought-provoking and maybe even actionable things we can get out of it.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in then.
Okay, so I think one of the things that Tolle does really well is he kind of forces us to look beyond just the surface level of, what we see happening in the world.
Yeah.
And he suggests that a lot of what's driving, like everything from our little petty arguments to like these huge global conflicts, is driven by this thing he calls ego.
Okay, so not just ego in the typical sense of like someone being arrogant or something like that.
Right.
But more like something deeper.
Yeah, it's more like he describes it as like this false sense of self that we create based on all of our thoughts and emotions and experiences, and then we like cling to it for dear life.
And that clinging is what creates this suffering.
Yeah, he argues that the ego is constantly striving for more.
Okay.
More possessions, more power, more validation.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of keeps us trapped in this cycle of just like desire and then dissatisfaction.
It's never enough, right?
Yeah.
It's so interesting, too, because he talks about how even like religion, which you would think would be like a path to enlightenment or getting beyond the ego, can get caught up in this trap as well.
Absolutely. He talks about how like doctrines and ideologies, even if they start with good intentions, they can become kind of these rigid thought forms that actually end up separating us more than uniting us.
And become almost like another tool for the ego to kind of like assert itself and create that conflict.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that quote from the book where he says, "Fear, greed, and the desire for power are the psychological motivating forces not only behind warfare and violence between nations, but also the cause of incessant conflict in personal relationships."
Yeah, that's a powerful one.
It's intense, right? When you really think about it, the root of so much suffering.
And it's interesting how he ties it not just to those like external conflicts, but also to our own inner turmoil,
Totally.
How many times have you gotten caught up in your own like
all the
fears
time.
And desires and constantly created conflict in your own life?
It's like, that need for more mentality.
Right.
Whether it's wanting a bigger house or a better job or even just like more likes on social media or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just this insatiable hunger that never seems to be satisfied.
That's exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that,
right.
we should deny all of our desires or like reject the material world.
Yeah.
Completely.
He's not saying become a monk and go live in a cave.
Right, exactly.
But it's more about becoming aware
Awareness,
of how that clinging is keeping us trapped in that ego's grip.
Yeah, and it's not even just material possessions.
No, he talks about it with everything, right?
Everything, yeah.
Like roles and beliefs and even our physical appearance.
Yeah, the ego loves to identify with any form.
Okay.
Like anything that gives it a sense of like solidity and permanence. But the problem is, nothing in that realm of form is actually permanent. It's always changing.
Like our bodies age.
Yep.
Our roles shift.
Yeah.
Beliefs change.
Yeah.
And so when we're clinging to those things, like as if they define who we are,
right,
it's going to lead to suffering.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm remembering that story he tells about the elderly woman who loses her diamond ring and she's like devastated.
Right.
And it wasn't just about the material loss.
Yeah, it was like part of her identity.
Yeah, her sense of worth was somehow tied up in that. And it was only when she was able to let go of that attachment and realize that her true essence wasn't defined by this object.
Yeah.
That she had this like shift.
Yeah, this profound shift in consciousness.
Such a powerful reminder that, true freedom comes from like detaching.
Detaching from those
From all of those things that we cling to.
Yeah.
For our sense of self.
It's a great lesson.
I'm thinking about my own life.
Yeah.
Like even clinging to certain roles or identities.
Right.
It creates so much anxiety
Yeah.
and stress.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, what if we all just practice detaching a little bit more?
That's what he's encouraging.
Yeah.
He's not saying, become indifferent to the world.
Right.
But more cultivate the sense of non-attachment. Recognize the impermanence of everything.
Yeah.
And find that true identity in something deeper.
And that brings us to presence, right?
Yeah, presence.
Which seems to be like central to his whole philosophy. I'll admit, when I first encountered this idea, it felt very mystical and abstract.
Right.
But as I read further, I started to understand it more as like a state of being fully present.
Yeah, in the moment.
In this moment.
Yeah.
Without being weighed down by the past or worrying about the future.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like shifting your attention away from that constant chatter of the mind.
Yeah.
And connecting with that stillness, that aliveness that's always available.
I can see how it's similar to mindfulness.
Right.
But I feel like Tolle's talking about something even deeper.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like a fundamental shift in consciousness.
It's not just about, paying attention to your breath or noticing your surroundings.
Right.
It's really about recognizing that your true essence isn't your thoughts.
Okay.
Or emotions or experiences.
But it's the consciousness.
Yeah, the consciousness that observes those things.
That's observing all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it a little bit more.
Good.
Do you have any, real-world examples of this in action?
Sure, yeah.
Because it's still a little hard for me to grasp.
Yeah, he tells this story about this woman who's just totally overwhelmed with all these legal troubles.
Oh, wow.
And she comes to see him, and she's just pouring out all of her anxieties and her fears, and Tolle, he just listens.
He just listens.
Just listens.
Wow.
With this deep presence.
Okay.
Doesn't offer any advice, solutions.
Wow.
Just his undivided attention.
That's powerful.
And in that space of presence, she just experiences this moment of peace, like a break from that relentless drama of her ego.
Wow.
And she later reports that she slept soundly for the first time in years.
That's amazing how just that simple act of presence can have such a profound impact.
And it's because presence really disrupts that ego's grip. The ego thrives on stories and drama and conflict.
Right.
But in the stillness of presence, those stories lose their power.
It seems like it's a choice in every moment.
Yeah.
To either get caught up in that ego's drama.
Exactly.
Or to step into this stillness.
And Tolle suggests that the more we cultivate that presence, the more we awaken to our true nature.
Okay, I think this is a really good foundation.
Yeah, this is good.
We've kind of explored the ego, its grip on us.
Yep.
This idea of presence as maybe like an antidote to that.
The antidote.
But we haven't even touched on the pain body yet.
Oh, there's so much more to come.
I'm excited to see where this deep dive takes us.
Me too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll be back with part 2 to discuss that.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so picking up where we left off, let's talk about this pain body thing.
Okay, yeah, when I first read about that, I have to say it sounded kind of like sci-fi.
It's a weird concept.
Yeah, this invisible entity that's feeding off of all our negative emotions.
Yeah, it's like a shadow self almost.
Yeah. That's carrying around all this pain.
All of our past hurts and traumas and stuff.
Yeah, but it's not even just our own personal pain, right?
Oh, so is it like other people's pain too or something?
He suggests that, we're not just these isolated individuals.
Okay.
We're actually all interconnected.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly picking up on the energy of others,
right,
both positive and negative.
Interesting.
And he says the pain body is kind of like a sponge.
Like it absorbs all the bad stuff?
It absorbs all the negativity and keeps it alive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that story he tells about the guy in the Indian restaurant.
Oh, yeah, that's a vivid one.
It's so vivid. This guy's just having dinner.
Just out of nowhere.
And then suddenly, this eruption of rage, it seems like it comes out of nowhere.
Right, and he's saying that it's not just that man's personal anger. It's like the collective pain body expressing itself.
Through him.
Through him, yeah.
Wow.
It's a bit unsettling to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But it also makes you wonder.
Yeah, how much of our stuff is actually ours.
Exactly. Like how much of our anger or sadness or whatever is actually coming from this.
This inherited pain, this shared pain.
The inherited pain, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Makes you think.
It does, but it also makes me think, well, if we can recognize it, that it's not necessarily personal,
exactly,
then maybe there's a way to detach from it a little bit.
That's the first step, right?
Yeah.
Awareness.
Recognizing it.
Recognizing that it's not you.
It's this other thing.
It's this energy field you've accumulated over time.
Okay, so we recognize it. Now what do we do with it?
Right.
Do we train fight it or suppress it?
He actually says that fighting it just makes it stronger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like wrestling with a shadow.
The more you resist.
The more you resist, the stronger it gets.
So we're not supposed to resist?
He suggests we bring presence to it.
Okay.
So like we were talking about before.
With the ego.
Yeah. With the ego.
So just observe it.
Observe it without judgment.
Yeah.
Let it be.
Without identifying with it.
Exactly. It's like finding that space between the stimulus and response.
That gap.
Yeah, that gap where we have the freedom to choose.
Okay, so it's like we're not getting swept away by it.
Right.
But we're also not pretending it's not there.
Exactly.
We're just acknowledging it.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
It is, it is.
But the more we practice it,
yeah,
the easier it gets.
So I'm seeing this theme of presence being kind of like this.
It's a theme for a reason.
Like a master key or something?
Yeah, like a master key to unlock.
To all this stuff, the ego, the pain body.
All the mental and emotional baggage.
Yeah, all the stuff that's weighing us down.
Exactly.
Keeping us trapped.
Yeah, it's not just a technique or a practice.
It's a whole shift.
It's a shift in consciousness.
In the way we see things.
Recognizing that our true essence isn't all that stuff.
It's that awareness.
It's the awareness that's observing it.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get that.
Good, good.
So the more we tap into that awareness,
yeah,
the less we're controlled by all that other stuff.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that idea of awakened doing.
Okay, yeah, we touched on that before.
Yeah, it's about bringing that presence into all aspects of our lives.
So not just when we're meditating or something.
Not just on the cushion, yeah.
But like in our daily life, our jobs, our relationships.
Washing the dishes, commuting to work.
All of it.
All of it can become an opportunity for awakening.
So it's almost like a radical shift in perspective.
It is a radical shift.
Instead of seeing our lives as this series of problems to solve.
Yeah, or tasks to complete.
We can see it as an opportunity.
An opportunity for growth, transformation.
And he's not saying we have to be all serious and like, you know.
No, not at all.
Super spiritual.
He talks about enjoyment and playfulness and enthusiasm.
Yeah, there's that lightness to it.
Yeah, finding joy in the simple things.
Yeah.
Appreciating the beauty of the present moment.
That's starting to sound less like a spiritual path and more like a recipe for a good life.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And it all ties into his concept of the new earth.
Okay, yeah, I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah.
It's a grand vision, but I'm not quite sure how it translates to like...
to practical action.
Yeah, how do we actually create this new earth?
Right.
In our own lives and in the world around us?
That's the big question.
Okay, so we're talking about this new earth, this vision.
Yeah.
Not as like some far-off future state.
Right.
But something that's happening now.
Yeah, in the present moment.
And I'm just curious, like, how does that actually translate to, you know, practical action in our daily lives?
Well, he doesn't give us like a step-by-step plan or anything.
Right.
But he suggests that it emerges organically.
Okay.
As more and more people kind of awaken to their true nature.
So like a ripple effect almost.
Exactly. Like each individual transformation contributes to this collective shift.
So it's not about waiting for someone else to fix the world.
Right.
Or create this utopia.
No, it's about taking responsibility.
For our own awakening.
For our own awakening, yeah.
And contributing to a more conscious and compassionate world.
Absolutely.
It's like that Gandhi quote, right? Be the change you wish to see.
Exactly. And he suggests it starts with a shift in perspective.
Okay.
Like seeing ourselves and the world through the eyes of presence.
You know, he tells that story about the man in the wheelchair.
Oh, yeah.
Who's like seemingly severely disabled.
Right.
Can't really speak or move freely.
Yeah, and
yet Tolle senses this like...
this depth.
This profound depth in his eyes.
Yeah.
And then later finds out it's Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking.
It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's a powerful illustration of how
our true essence can shine through.
Yeah, regardless of our physical form or our circumstances.
It's a good reminder not to judge by appearances.
Absolutely.
Because we all have that spark, right?
We all have that spark within us.
Yeah, the divinity.
Yeah, and he says, as we awaken to that true nature, our perception of the world starts to shift.
We become more compassionate.
More compassionate, more attuned to that interconnectedness.
Yeah, more in alignment with
that flow of life.
So it's not just personal transformation then.
Right, it ripples out.
It affects the world around us.
Absolutely.
And he emphasizes that it's not a one-time event, this awakening.
It's an ongoing journey.
Yeah, it's a process.
It's a process of shedding those layers of ego.
Deepening that connection to presence.
And living in alignment with our purpose.
You know, one thing that really struck me about A New Earth is that he doesn't present it as like
Yeah.
a rigid set of beliefs.
Right. It's not dogma.
Yeah, or practices.
He's not saying this is the only way to enlightenment.
He's more like a guide.
Yeah, more like a guide pointing us in the right direction.
Offering tools and insight.
But ultimately inviting us to explore.
To find our own path.
To find our own unique path to awakening.
It's like he's giving us the map.
Yeah, the map.
And saying, go create your own adventure.
Exactly. Take ownership of your journey.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
In this deep dive into a new earth.
Yeah, it's been a good one.
From the ego's need for drama to the power of presence, the pain body,
all of it,
the new earth consciousness.
It's a lot.
It is.
But I think it's really about remembering who we truly are.
It's about letting go of those limitations.
Yeah, and allowing our true essence to shine through.
And I think that's a message that resonates.
There's a lot of people.
With so many people.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this episode,
I
want to leave you with a question to ponder.
Right.
What if this journey of awakening isn't about fixing ourselves or becoming something we're not?
Yeah.
But it's just about remembering who we truly are.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
A great question to ponder.
So we encourage you to explore that question.
Experiment with his insights.
And discover that new earth that's waiting to be born within you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.